All right, I'm going to be nosy and ask, and you don't have to tell me, but can you give us any insight as to what it takes to run the team, like a yearly budget number?
Our budget's around $400,000 for next year. I saw somebody in the Vital forum that wrote out an idea of my budget at $1 million. And I wanted to write back and say like, hey, dude, the budget looks great. Can you just show me where to get the $1 million from?
A big shout out goes to Maxxis Tires, Jensen USA, and Fox Shocks for supporting the Inside Line. Welcome, mountain bikers. Neko Mulally, we're here. Frameworks, you have Asa Vermette. We've known that. Big news today. Angel Suarez is now on the squad for 24. It's a pretty big pickup. Let's just go straight into it. How did that all work out? Like, why did you want him on the team? How did you get him on the team? Like, let's dig in and we can go from there.
Yeah, man. I am very fortunate to have these guys around me. They are both incredible riders. We just had our team camp a couple weeks ago, and watching them ride in person was just such a cool thing to see, like them putting my bike through the paces and see what they could do with it. It was just so cool. How did it come about? I guess I've been a teammate of Angel's a few years over when I was on YT. I think we were a teammate for 2017 and 18. Almost all the guys that I was teammates with over the years, I remained friends with, and I've had so many awesome teammates, and Angel was on the top of the list. Through the season this year, I was keeping in touch with him. I keep in touch with a lot of guys. It's interesting, like being friends with so many other racers, to just, chat with them after races and see how their season's been going. And he was asking a couple of questions about setup. And I always say that because, like, I not to brag, but I feel like I'm pretty involved in the bike setup stuff. I know a lot about it, and I feel like I can be an asset when people have questions. And Angel came to me with some questions and tried to help him with his setup, and we stayed in touch. And I guess as the season progressed and came to an end, I was discussing with him about even the possibility of them using our frames on their team. I told him I didn't have the budget of a big company. It's pretty much just me and Logan doing all this with our frameworks company. But if they needed some frames, I could be happy to support them, and they would have a peace of mind to know that they were on a proven race bike that's been developed. They don't have to do the development. And that conversation kind of went from being interested to one day the idea was that he wanted to join my team, and that might be a better opportunity for him. So of course I was game for that. Like I see the potential in him as a rider. I don't know. I'm so much a fan of racing that I want to try to like put the best lineup I can out there. I sometimes overlook the budget and just see how awesome it's going to be. And I feel like having that passion for racing can get you further in the sport than only sticking to the budget and like kind of being cautious with it. So when there was a chance to get Angel on the bike, I wanted to do everything we could to make it happen. And it kind of progressed pretty quick, but I'm really stoked to have two guys, a guy in the junior category and a guy in the elite category representing next year.
Yeah, dude, both podium contenders for sure. So it sounds like it happened fairly organically, but was there intent to have a non-US rider on the team, or was it just based on your friendship and talking and things like that?
No, I mean, there really wasn't much consideration from where they're from. Like, it's more to do with their ability on the bike and the way that they would kind of integrate with the team. And I know that Angel would be a good fit personality-wise. I think he could be a good mentor to Asa and offer like a good leadership in the team, and also get great results potentially for us in the elite category. So I really don't care where you're from. If you can check those boxes and you're a good person, then you're always welcome on the frameworks team.
Cool. So it wasn't something of like, hey, it'd be sweet to have someone outside of the U.S. as far as trying to reach a market out there. If, you end up selling bikes to a bigger degree, it wasn't anything like that.
Not at all. And to be honest, I probably, if I had my choice, I would have had another U.S. rider. There just wasn't the opportunity for that this year. We're very much a U.S. program. Our base is here. We sold, I think, 45 frames now, and 43 of them were in the United States. So it's it would make more sense to have more U.S. riders, but we just want the best riders we can, and it doesn't matter where they're from.
All right, we'll get into the whole U.S. rider thing in a little bit, but all right, as I was typing up notes and this kind of happened fairly quickly, but Angel was on UNNO, and UNNOs are stunning, full glossy carbon, kind of like Bugatti looking mountain bikes. Frameworks, visually, it seems like UNNO and Frameworks couldn't be more different. And I say that with nothing but praise. But from the outside looking in, it's like Frameworks, you guys are gritty, you're scrappy, kind of like the underdog that everyone's rooting for. Whereas UNNO kind of has that vibe of champagne and caviar, limos and all that stuff. Do you think a change from, that kind of style of bike and possibly that vibe of a team to what you're doing is going to impact what Angel's going to do? And strictly aesthetics of the bike, that's kind of all I'm going with here. But, just kind of curious, it seems like such a different vibe from, that brand to yours.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I don't think that the aesthetics of the bike make any difference in the outcome of the race. So
for sure,
I think that what we can offer is Angel the opportunity to hop on a bike that I've developed for the past 2 years. He trusts me. He trusts my advice with bike setup, and he can just focus on training, racing, being in a great mindset when he gets in the start gate, and not have to spend the time developing a bike. I think he learned this year how hard it is. And I went through that too with my bike. If he would have the first bike that I made, he would be going through some growing pains. So I think that's the main thing that we can offer, is just the confidence to not have to worry about the bike and know that you have the things you need and none of the things you don't need.
That makes sense. Angel's on Fox, you're on Fox suspension. Does any of that play into it? Looking at someone that's riding components you're already using and, that kind of transition from one brand to another versus hey, they're already familiar with some of the stuff we're riding. Does any of that matter or factor in?
I think it matters when you're bringing a rider on. I think Angel prefers Fox. I do as well. We have the choice to ride different suspension if we wanted to go that route. I've used Fox every year in my career. In the beginning, it was the teams that I was on, and it's all that I knew. And now that I've gotten into more testing and developing the bike, I've ridden everything, and I truly think that the Fox fork is well and truly above the rest as far as suspension that you can get your hands on. And Angel agrees with me with that, and he's even ridden other suspension brands over the past couple of years. So I think he was really comfortable to stick with the Fox suspension. And looking over all the components we have on our bike, I think anybody who's a true fan of mountain biking would see my intention when they see our parts spec. Our goal is for performance, and I really believe when I hop on my bike, it's the way that I would ride it if I had no sponsors. So I think in the beginning, talking with him, he could see that, and he agreed with all the choices, and even got involved a little bit with testing while some sponsors were still up in the air. So just knowing that you're involved with that, I think as a rider, you can take some ownership in the decision, and together, that you're going to be on the best equipment.
The only thing I noticed in your team photos and in that video, which was sick, the music choice too, the Asa flipping at the start, we'll get into that too. But you're on Continental tires this year. Are there any other changes? Because you were on Maxxis last year.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
We didn't actually have a wheel sponsor last year, and we're going to use Envy. Asa has been with Envy, and so has Angel, so that was something they were both comfortable with. I really like the product as well. They have the rim strip that goes completely over the rim wall. I think that is interesting for me because it's something that's important for racing. How many products are built for the application of, if this fails in a race and someone has to keep riding it, can your tires still hold air? Like, that's such a design for the people who aren't buying it. Like, there's not that many consumers that are like, I want to buy a rim that if I break it and I keep riding it, I won't lose air. That's a race product, and it gives us security as racers. And I think it just shows the extent that Envy goes to develop products for racing and what their commitment is to racing. So we're all really stoked on the rims, and it's something that I didn't have as extensive time testing on as Asa and Angel have, but they were really comfortable in the product and wanted to stick with it.
Okay.
And then Continental is a big change too. I rode the tires and was blown away. I mean, just like everything with our frameworks program, it's a performance-driven choice. I feel like we have the best shot with those tires. I feel like on all ends of the spectrum, they really impressed me. They're built different, and they have a different feel. They have like a softer inner rubber and a harder outer rubber, which is kind of the opposite of the way a lot of other tires are built. And I feel like it's very rewarding for a tire that you push harder. The harder you push it, the better it works. And I'm really stoked with it. It's always a tough decision because the industry's small, and I had a great relationship with Maxxis. I've been working with them the past couple of years, even developing a new tire. And to make a change like this is something that, like, it's a tough call, and it's something that the team as a whole, the other riders, agree with. And we just try to do that in a way that we don't burn any bridges, and keep the relationship open in the future. But for now, we're looking for the best performing products we can, and that's why we went with Continental.
Was there much adjustment on your part to riding style, or just adapting to a different tire?
A little bit, for sure. I would say there's just instances where the tire for a similar amount of grip has more sidewall support. Like in corners, you can push the tire further without having it roll or squirm, and that means you can ride it faster. So there's a little bit of getting used to. You didn't have to really sweet talk it anywhere. You could it just wanted more, and that's what you're looking for out of a race product.
Looking at the team photo, you, Ace, and Angel, you're basically all the same height. Is that true?
With it,
like, at least standing there, your heads, you're millimeters apart, if anything.
Yeah.
Was that intentional at all? And then have you compared each other's setups? Like, do you know how much each other weighs? And is everyone riding the same stock size, or can Angel get a frame that's custom geo for him, Asa custom for him, and one for you? Like, can you kind of explain how all that works? And is it just coincidence that you happen to all be the same size?
Yeah, it's definitely coincidence. And it's,
okay.
It's definitely helpful for us, like, as far as having spares and having, building out all the equipment that we need for the season. It's more convenient when everybody's on the same size. But there is definitely a range of adjustment within the bike. We have a oversized lower cup. So we went from a straight 56 to a 62 millimeter bottom cup. And that gave us 9 mil of adjustment with no stack at all. So without changing any geometry to the bike, you can go 9 millimeters in either direction. So 18 millimeters total reach. That would get you a little bit in a sweet spot. Right now we're all in the center position, which is convenient again, but there's the option. We have 5 millimeter cups and 9 millimeter cups. So the guys can go there if they want to. We have a flip chip at the shock that changes the progression from 30% to 27%. So depending on what kind of tracks we're riding, it's a small but usable adjustment. You don't really, it's not so much that I find like when you have a 5 mil progression adjust, you have to change the spring rate to get the wheel rate that you were looking for. But with a smaller adjustment, you can keep the same spring and fine tune that progression and kind of where your leverage ratio sits. So those 2 adjustments should keep us in everything that we need. We tend to do more with the suspension anyway. Asa is quite a bit lighter than Angel and I. Angel and I are very similar in weight, but Asa runs a pretty firm spring. Like he's pretty close to us. I think he's
young.
He is. and it's interesting, like I talk to a lot of riders, like what they're looking for. Some guys associate like a stiff setup with harsh, hard to ride, or a big bike with like tougher to handle. And for Asa, it's like the stiffer and the bigger the bike, the more he likes it, because the more he can push into it. So it shows where his head's at. And I think there's a limit to that for sure. And we try to keep him on the best functioning setup. But he definitely, if it was up to him, he would make it as stiff as he can.
That's awesome. Are you and Angel pretty similar when it comes to setup? Do you know yet? I mean, I know it's been fairly early, but...
Pretty similar for sure. And I've given him a lot of my settings. We kind of went through, he was here for a week and we went through a bunch of stuff. I actually saved my favorite shock for the last day, and I didn't tell him it was my favorite before he wrote it. Kind of like end on a positive note, keep something in my back pocket. But he was stoked with that, and that's, we both liked the same setting. And we have good support from Fox too. Like we even had a phone call with Jerry, who's helping us with the tuning of our shocks. And he and Angel could speak in Spanish, which was awesome. They could maybe get more across that way. But we were on a pretty similar setup, and like fork setting wise, it was pretty easy to... I think he could take my bike and race it right away, and it'll be a little bit of fine tuning for him. And again, like I said in the beginning, that's kind of the advantage for Angel. But I want him to feel like he has this time, this early in the season, to go through all the testing. We're going to spend a bunch of time around the Tennessee National and the National at Rock Creek. We'll all be there for like a month. That'll be a month away from the first World Cup, so we'll have a perfect time where we're like close enough to the season where we have our race bikes, but still have a month to sort it out, where we can mess with stuff, but also want to like get to a point where, and I've been through this as a rider too, it needs to come to an end, and you need to you need to pick something and go with it. And at that point, like your bike's in the window that you know what it's going to do, and it's going to work for you, and the difference is going to be made up by the riding. So I hope we can stay on that track and not get overwhelmed with options.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a brilliant strategy. Like once you're there, just run it, let it work, and do your fine tuning. All right, it seems like all the news this year is this team's folded, that team's cutting people, and it's just supposed to be chaos in the bike industry with teams and all that. You've managed to add a rider. Can you enlighten us as to how that works? I mean, you mentioned at the beginning not to be too freaked out by budgets and whatnot, but you guys, you're small, you're doing it yourself. Like, how do you pull in a whole other rider to send around the world?
I would say for Angel's caliber rider, at the time of year when he was released from his team, we got him at a pretty good price, because at that point there was not a whole lot of options. So it was, I guess, some bargain shopping to be done when the market's like this. And he knows that what he needs next year is to have a great season, get the best results he can, and then that'll put him in the best spot going forward, whether it's with us or with another team. So we're all on the same page with that, and we just want to have the best results we can this year. And we were able to punch above our weight with our roster because of that. We also went to all of our sponsors early with the idea that we were going to be expanding our team. I mean, we've talked so much about Angel, but really Asa is such a huge asset. And in all my negotiations with my sponsors, having him on the roster is what they're all looking for. it's the hot ticket, and they can see the potential that he has. He's truly on the track to be the best rider in the world in the next couple of years. And he's such a nice, humble kid from Colorado. So it's very fitting. And just going to all the sponsors, and a big part of it was they could see that when a lot of teams are downsizing or folding, we were expanding at a pretty big rate. And that was something that you could jump on board with and set yourself apart. So I couldn't do it without all of the sponsors. We have huge support for next year, and it's all from component sponsors. Like, we're selling the frames and hoping to get to a point where Frameworks is able to contribute to the team instead of in more than just providing equipment. Personally, like, it's only cost me money until now. So it's not like I have Santa Cruz backing the Santa Cruz Syndicate. It's every other piece on the bike that's paying the way. And they're all, like I said, you can't just go for the big money ones either when you want to win. You have to go for the best performing. So I think I've found a really good balance of getting the budget we need and making no compromise on the products we're using. So yeah, huge thanks to our sponsors, because that's how we're able to punch above our weight with our budget.
Do you think it's in the team and brand story that's been the hook, kind of you taking this on yourself, making a bike that's race ready, getting to the races and having everyone watch and kind of follow along? Like, now that development process seems to be like not near its end, but it seems like you're in a place of refinement now rather than just pure starting from scratch and seeing what works. Do you think, since the bike development process and the team development process is further along, that race results are going to matter more this year than maybe they did the last year or two when you were kind of starting out fresh?
I think if it was only me, it would definitely, we'd need something refreshing. But I think having Asa and Angel coming onto the program keeps it new and exciting. I think one thing that Frameworks has done really well is be different in a space where it's so hard to. Over my career, like, I struggled the last few years of, like, there's so many guys at a World Cup and we all put the same picture on our Instagram account of the same corner, but it's me in the shot instead of another guy. And
sure,
yeah, if you're a podium rider, there's a lot of space for you. But after that, it's tough to set yourself apart. You have to be doing something different to be valuable to your sponsors. And I think with Frameworks, I can continue that story, and I plan to continue with the bike development. And now I can offer this bike that I've developed to two amazing riders who can go and show what it's capable of. And we're able to kind of tell both stories along the way. I still plan to race. At least the first 4 World Cups are on the books for me, and see how it's going. And my focus with that is more to be an asset to the riders. I'm going to test some new ideas, some new concepts that we're working on for Frameworks. We're going to have a bonded frame, potentially a gearbox frame that we're working on.
Sick.
Just trying ideas that you never know until you race them. And at a World Cup, like, you can try it all you want in testing, but you got to take it to the race to really find out. And I think I can be an asset to those guys by testing all that stuff out in a race situation, and they don't have to race anything that's unproven until I determine that it's faster and it's reliable, and then I can pass it on to them. So I think it's a good spot where, like, I can do that. I can tell the story through Frameworks and then help the guys in the same way, and then they can deliver results. So all around, I think it fits our ethos.
That sounds super neat. Keeping that going with just the development and trying new things like that, for sure, but kind of being the guinea pig so Asa and Angel can do what they need to do.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you kind of hit on it. It's hard to stand out in this game, but you've done that. And clearly, like, I'm sure you've heard this a billion times and it's all over the internet, but everyone is so in love with the transparency that you provided. And I'm surprised, especially after year one, seeing just, regardless of the success of the bike and your program, just the success of comments and the engagement and how interested people were in what you did. I'm really surprised that other brands haven't seemed to pick up on that. And maybe they can't because they have sales goals and things they have to sell and inventory to deal with. But it's 2 years later, like you said, like you're the only one really doing this at a scale where you're developing a bike and a brand, but you're also letting everyone come along for the ride with you. I feel like we're at the park or at the shop with you figuring stuff out. But when something goes wrong, everyone's like, oh man, come on, get it. You got this. So it's nothing you haven't heard before. And like I said, it's been said a million times, but the transparency that you offer is so awesome. And it's been such a fascinating kind of watch along the way. So just kudos again, because, I'm so excited now to hear that you're going to try GEARBOX or bonded frame and then also have Asa and Angel on it. Like the story's just going to get sicker and sicker as you go.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's been, it's what I would want to see. Like I'm such a nerd for that type of stuff. I'll say I'm surprised that there were so many people that were interested in it. I thought maybe it would be just boring to listen to me describe my in-depth about my frame, but there was way more people that were stoked on it than I initially anticipated, and can't thank them all enough for the support, because without enthusiasm towards the project, I couldn't have gone and got the sponsors to support it. So it's they are really making it happen by supporting the team. I think it's nothing that isn't done or that I haven't done with other teams, but like I've cracked just as many bikes from as many other teams as I've raced for. But this time I explained what happened and how I was going to fix it. And in every case, I found a solution. There's definitely some times where, people want to give you a lot of advice and, you're already working on a solution and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. But I think it builds trust. I think that when you show the process that you went through, when you finally say like, hey, I cracked 8 frames last year and now I figured out how to not do it, they believe you, because you didn't just come with a too good to be true, stumbled in like no compromise design. I always laugh at that. And I guess last year we had that Red Bull documentary that really leaned into cracking all the frames, and that didn't bother me at all. Like that would be tough for some brands and probably not the best look, but I think anybody who's a true fan sees the things that I was going through and that I found the solution for them and felt a part of it. So I would love to watch something like that unfold myself, and I was just proud to be able to produce that.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome so far. You don't have any outside of the game sponsors right now? It's just, like you said, mostly component sponsors pretty much?
WD-40 has a line of bike products, and that's where our budget comes from. Yep. But for me, like they've really stepped up and are one of our biggest sponsors this year. And is
Bellucci still there?
Yeah, he's the guy making the call. He was the one that
dude, Bellucci.
He asked if we'd go for a bike ride, talk about the next season, and I was like, yeah, so we could renew the contract. We're gonna have Asa on board as well. And he was like, well, actually, dude, we'd like to step up in a much bigger way. I was like, dude, I'm bad at this negotiation thing. But yeah, dude, they were one of the first ones to fully like, how can we be a bigger part of this program? And for me, they're such a cool sponsor because it's like a blue collar American company. We use, like, Frank is using WD-40 on all of his old machines that he uses to build our frames. It's like used in the shop and part of the process. So it just makes sense that WD-40 supports us, not only on the WD-40 bike side, like we use all their cleaning products and lubricants and grease, but just as a complete brand, like WD-40 aligns with Frameworks very well.
All right, I'm going to be nosy and ask, and you don't have to tell me, but can you give us any insight as to what it takes to run the team, like a yearly budget number?
Our budget's around $400,000 for next year. I saw somebody in the Vital forum that wrote out an idea of my budget at $1 million. And I wanted to write back and say like, hey dude, the budget looks great. Can you just show me where to get the $1 million from?
That'd be so rad. All right. So like, yeah, how many people will have to travel for a single World Cup? Like assuming you're going to be there too.
Yeah. So one thing we haven't touched on is Martin Whiteley is going to be our team manager for next year, which is
okay. I was going to ask, is Martin involved somehow?
Yeah. He's full on the team manager of the team. Like, so everything from logistics to at the finish line. And, he's going to, in the Frameworks way, have to put in a little more elbow grease than normal. So he'll be helping to cook us dinner as well.
Nice.
Which is funny because I've been on so many of Martin's teams where, he had like the person to do every job. And now it's like, well, dude, like I'd love to have you a part of it, but on Frameworks, you got to do all the jobs. And yeah, I mean, he's run 4 high-level World Cup teams, and on every single one of those teams has won races and overalls. So I think that he's going to be a huge asset to Frameworks, and he's helped the past 2 years with me with doing all the contracts and the sponsor stuff and behind-the-scenes logistics. And this year, just with more than just myself, he'll be helping to manage. Like, it's one thing to get you and your mechanic to the race at the same time. It's another thing to get 6 people there. So when you asked how many people are coming, and say there's 3 riders, me, Angel, and Asa. Then we have my mechanic Ancho, who will be mechanicking. I say my mechanic. He's going to be the mechanic for Angel and Asa. He's the best mechanic that we have, and I want to make sure that he takes care of their bikes. Being that they're in different categories, he can do too. My mechanic's going to be Josiah Williams. He's a friend of mine from Pennsylvania who's a really good bike shop mechanic and has been racing downhill himself a bunch over the past few years. He's never been a World Cup mechanic, but in the position that I'm in, if he can keep my bikes rolling, and he's a smart kid and can learn where to set my trainer bike up at the top. But the other guys might be a little bit more particular about that than I am right now. And then, yeah, so it'll be the 2 mechanics, Martin, and then the 3 riders. And Logan's going to come and continue doing video stuff at some of the races. We actually are going to work with Sleeper Co. They're going to help us with getting footage. Sweet. So instead of Logan going to every single race, he really, I believe he's done an awesome job with all the video stuff. Like, that's another thing we've done all ourselves. But he doesn't consider himself a videographer. It was cheaper for us to buy a camera, watch a YouTube tutorial about how to use it, and start making the videos. And like, you can watch the video before you post it and know if you like it or not. And if you don't like it, just change it until you think it's good enough. And that's how we made all of our videos. And in a lot of ways, this is the way we've done everything with Frameworks. But he's like, dude, the last thing that I really like to do is go to a World Cup, stand on a rainy hill all day to watch you ride past 4 times and try not to miss the shot. It's not like exactly what I'd like to be doing. These guys are good at it, and they have like 5 guys shooting. Let's just pay them and use their footage to make the videos. So it'll be a collaboration with them to continue doing the footage. So yeah, team budget for the year, we're gonna do all the World Cups, World Champs. We're gonna do the new Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series here in the U.S. We're going to do a couple Downhill Southeast preseason, do the U.S. Open and National Champs. So not a whole lot outside of the World Cups other than the U.S. stuff. Angel will do probably his National Champs and European Champs. European Champs is on the World Cup track at Champery, which will be World Champs in 25. So he wants to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot outside of that. Our budget for the year is $400,000, and we'll spend probably every penny of it.
I'm sure. Yeah, man. All right, so back to the forums. Maybe that guy can figure out where to get you an extra 600. But it sounds like you're keeping an eye on the forum threads. But there are a lot of people thinking that Aaron Gwin was going to be part of the Frameworks team. Like, was that ever an actual consideration?
We chatted with him for sure. I'm at my brother Logan's house right now, and 5 minutes from Windrock, and Aaron's house is literally the next door. So definitely talk with him a couple times about like what his plans are and if he could be a part of things. And I still don't think he really knows. He's got a plan, but I don't know all the details about exactly the specifics of it. It was funny when Angel was out here, we were riding at Windrock, and obviously Aaron just took over Windrock. And the three of us were the YT team for a few years, so it was kind of like the band back together. And Angel said, like, Aaron, why don't you join us? And he was like, well, maybe I will. But I think he's got some other stuff going on, and who knows? In the future, it would be really cool.
Yeah. No, the idea is sick. Just U.S. smashers all over the place. But yeah, so many people wanted that one to happen, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would love to someday.
All right, we're getting to some questions that Jason put together. Schroeder, he wants to know what your 5-year plan is for frameworks.
I'd say for the bike company, like, I'd like to keep it low overhead. Like in my experience with other businesses, whether it's the bike parks or the race series we run, like, if we're able to keep it to a smaller group of people and deliver a better product, then it's normally more fun and easier to manage. So right now, like I said, it's just me and Logan doing the whole thing. Everything from, like, I'm doing the bike development and sort of product management. Everything from tracking down every piece of metal we need to make the frames, to keeping the production on track and thinking of new ideas and working with our engineer, Dan, to help with those. To Logan doing, like, all the website, all the customer service, all the finance stuff. So if we can keep it in a way where it doesn't get a whole lot bigger than us, and we don't really need to sell that many frames or bikes to really make a great product and not be, trying to, how can we sell more all the time? Like, we can enjoy the process of doing it and really make what we believe is the best product we can. And I'd like to continue to grow that over the next 5 years and keep that mentality going forward. And if we could just sell a couple more frames than we are now, expand to other categories of bike. Like, I made one enduro prototype and it rode so damn good. Asa won the national champs on it, like, the second weekend that he rode it. And we've just been so swamped trying to make our downhill bike into deliver these to the public and launch it and get them done on time that we haven't made a refined version of that. But if we could capture all those same qualities in a refined version of the frame, like, we'd have an awesome enduro bike too. So to do that, and in the future, in the same way, do, like, my best idea for another category of bike, whether it's a shorter travel, a dual slalom bike, a dirt jump bike, who knows? That's kind of like the goal for the brand, and then for the team to just have good people that I like to work with involved, like we have this year, and be working together to get the best results we can. I think just offering, like I said, like, not just on the bike side with, like, the knowledge and peace of mind for the riders to not have to worry about the bike and do all the testing themselves, but also, like, my experience racing World Cups for the past 15 years. I know what things can be distracting on a race weekend, what things go well, and I think that I can help to make sure the riders are getting everything they need and not being distracted by other things they don't. And I think as a racer myself, I have that perspective that, sometimes on teams, the people running it don't realize that there's just, like, small details that can mean a lot to the mindset of the rider. And I can kind of buffer that out and filter that for them so that they're, just getting everything they need to do their best performance. So going forward, just, utilizing myself to try to offer that to whatever riders we have on the team. And hopefully those riders continue, as we have this year, to be some of the best riders in the world.
All right. I'm reading Jason's question verbatim. It says, not to be a dick, But over the last few years, your results have dropped a bit. Was starting your own brand something you thought you would do after, or thought you would pursue after your racing career? Or was starting Frameworks something that came from necessity to keep racing as a way to build your own program? It seems like a great way to continue chasing racing while using racing to build a company and now a team that will live beyond Neko Mulally, the racer.
Yeah, I mean, the results speak for themselves. I can totally agree with them. One thing that I think I've kind of tended to downplay over my career is the amount of injuries I've had. I've had some big ones, and they definitely stack up. Like, you kind of get back to a new baseline for yourself after each injury, and normally that baseline is not as high as it was before that. And especially over the past 5 years, I broke my neck in 2020. This past year, I broke my pelvis. I felt like I was actually coming to the season really strong before that, but it's been a tough one to come back from. So I'd say, bike aside, just my body is not in the condition that it was 10 years ago, and able to get the results that I was before. It wasn't really my plan to see Frameworks out like this. It was kind of a spot where I wasn't stoked with the options that I had for race teams, or even some of the development process that I was going through with the teams that I was riding for. With everything I learned, I felt like if I didn't have to compromise with some marketing agenda or an engineer that thought that he knew better, I could do exactly the bike that I wanted. And not to say that I knew everything or that bike would be better, but I wanted to find out, and I wanted to kind of see what I could do. I felt like I had enough contacts and enough of my own knowledge to at least know where to start. And I kind of just threw everything into that. I'd say I'm pretty lucky as to when I started it, because there was more budget flowing in 2022 than there seems to be now. That was a good time for sponsorships in the industry. So I was able to get the support to go racing and develop my bike through this project, and have the money I needed to go around and enter all the World Cups. And I could put my focus on developing the bike along the way. And that's kind of just step by step led me here. The goal was always just to do the best by my sponsors, to make the best bike that I could. And I think with everything I do, I just try to put my best foot forward and apply myself wherever I'm the most useful. And I'd say that, I have a passion for developing the bike, and following that process has led me to a spot where, some things just fell into place. Asa was coming on really strong and wanted to ride my bike. How often do you have an opportunity like that, where a kid that's that talented wants to come under your wing? That opportunity doesn't come along often. So just, yeah, I'd say to Jason, it wasn't part of the master plan. I just tried to do my best at every step of the way, and this is where I think I'm the most useful.
Cool. All right, back to one that this is kind of random, but I look back at our video that we did, when you announced the team, the first, it came out on January 1st, 2022, the interview you and I did, and slapped the photos that you took, put it on YouTube. It's got 122,000 views, which is bonkers. I'm just whoa, holy cow, that did great. Now, I haven't watched it yet, but I saw, and this a handful of months ago, but you did a video with Seth at Berm Peak, right?
Yeah.
And that thing's got 1 million views or more, doesn't it? If not close.
It's something around there. I don't scroll back and check the view count, but it did really well.
Yeah, that's freaking nuts. How did that go? Was there any takeaway from that? Was the audience there, which I assume is in general a little bit different than Vital's audience, but did they receive what you were doing well? Were the comments nice? How'd that go? Because when I saw that come out, and I think it might have got referred to me maybe like 3 days after it was up, and it was like 400,000 views or something bonkers. I'm like, whoa, no way. And then it just stoked that so many people could see your bike. But how'd all that go? Was there any kind of takeaway from it?
I think Seth in general is just a great storyteller. It's not like a promotion. It's just like, here's a 10-minute video of a story that you might find interesting. And I think it was just, he has a big audience and a lot of people watched it, and they might not be core downhill fans. This might be one of the first downhill things they've seen, but I think it's just a story. Like if I saw somebody doing this with a race car, I think it would be pretty interesting, whether I was totally into that or not. So yeah, I was super appreciative for Seth to make that video. It was crazy because I'm pretty good friends with Seth. He lives 10 minutes from my house, and he's done so much to help our bike parks whenever he comes and does one of his videos there. It's amazing. Yeah. Sometimes as a pro rider, you set your ego aside and you say like, well, most of the passes we sell are because this guy on YouTube made a video about our bike park. Like he's driven a lot of sales for us. But he asked actually before that if I would help him do a video about line choice in sections of the trail and comparing a pro rider to a recreational rider. And then the day before he was like, instead of that, like, would you mind if I just made a video about your project? I think people would find that more interesting. And I was like, I would never ask him to do it, but the fact that he asked me, I was honored. And I think it just opens it up to more people, which I totally helps me. It helps hopefully in the future we sell more frames, and all the sponsors that support me, their components were on the bike in that video. And the whole idea of the video was like, here's a guy doing it himself, doing it the way he wants, and they can see all those parts on my bike. And I think that adds a lot of value to those sponsors, more so than here's a guy on a race team that signed for a full package.
For sure. Yeah. No, secretly when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I hope there's something cool going on. Like Nico's going to give every video he makes to Seth, and Seth's going to run it. You're going to have like 1 trillion views by the end of the season. There's something like that going on, but obviously it wasn't that way. But I thought it was super sick. Just the fact, like, there is a dope US downhill rider and bike getting 1 million views on something. Killer.
He said he wanted to try the downhill bike himself, so we'll have to make another video where he gets to ride it.
Dude, for sure. Yeah. Dude, he puts it out there. Like he goes hard.
He does, man. For his ability level, he sends it.
Yep. All right. Another Jason one. Why haven't you painted the frames or done any stickers or logos or any of that yet? Is that coming?
To be honest, man, it's just a process that I haven't gone down the road of figuring out yet. Like the bikes, I never intended to make the bikes look a certain way. I think that them being like the front triangles raw aluminum and the rear triangles raw carbon fiber, it's the natural color of the material, and it speaks to our intentions as a brand. Like we want the bikes to work the best they can, and that just happens to be that the color the material is. Adding paint normally adds the weight to your frame. It's something that when people buy the frame can scratch. You have to do your due diligence when you're painting stuff. You need to test it, make sure the paint's durable, and it's not something that I've really gone through the process of just yet. I think our branding is actually maybe different in that way, where the logo is CNC'd into the bike, and we didn't have the intention of a marketing team choosing the color. We just made the best bike we could, and that's the color it happened to be.
Cool. That's easy. All right. Team Robot has 2 questions. You can decide how deep you want to go on either of them. What was your biggest surprise regarding a single bike design parameter with your bike's development?
I'd say in the beginning, I thought I was going to be designing the bike like I was putting in an order at a deli. Like I want this, not that, exactly this. And when I finally got into like some of the engineering myself, it's like you make one thing better and it affects everything else. So you're kind of going around in this circle of like your overall goals and what ride feel. You got to keep coming back to like the ride feel that you're chasing, and know that everything you do is going to be a compromise, whether it's directly compromising something else or adding complexity to the bike to achieve what you want. You know, if you add every gadget, if you have an idler pulley, a floating brake mount, 6 links, 10 extra bearings, yeah, you can get things on a computer screen that you couldn't get without that. But then you have the complexity of living with that and the reliability of it, and everything you add to the bike gives you another risk that you have when you're racing. So yeah, before I knew as much about the development process, I would wonder, was like, why can't we have a straighter curve for this? Like, why don't you just make the anti-rise here and leave everything else the same? And it's like, well, now I know that all of it is intertwined, and by changing one thing, you change everything. So that was the biggest surprise for me, was I thought like, I could just pick what I wanted and what I didn't, and you just can't do that.
Okay. All right. You sort of touched on it, and Robot's second question was, can you talk about your experience with different anti-rise values, since this seems to be a hot topic, and why you've landed on where you're at now?
I'd say one thing to consider with that is anti-rise is defined by your center of gravity. And normally when you see anti-rise values for bikes, they don't define what center of gravity they chose to get that anti-rise. And it's true in reality, like as the center of mass on the vehicle are moving up and down, your center of gravity affects the rise and squat, or the acceleration and deceleration of the bike. And it's crazy how you just move that around and it totally changes the graph. So to start with, you need to decide what center of gravity we're using to compare anti-rise. I've found that I really liked the braking feel of the previous generation Treks, and they were around 70% anti-rise with like a 600, 620 center of gravity, which I don't think necessarily is absolutely accurate. I would love to do an experiment of like actually defining center of gravity for downhill, and it's going to be different on everybody's body, but I have a friend who has helped me with some 3D scanning of my frames to check the accuracy of them. And I talked to him about 3D scanning a person on the bike and then overlaying video footage to see where the center of gravity really was, which is then defining all your acceleration and deceleration forces of the bike. So with that, I'd say like comparing apples to apples, a lot of brands use like that 600 to 620 range for center of gravity. And with that, like 70% was something that I always really liked. And I did grow up racing a Trek, and that's where theirs normally sat. It just made the bike feel like it was pretty active, like the suspension was still working while you were braking. And on a lot of World Cup tracks, they're so steep that you need to consider the way the bike's performing under braking. If you look at our data acquisition, you're braking for 80% of the run. And it's just to do with the nature of the courses. Anybody would be. Probably more amateur riders would be braking a lot more than 80% of the run. So you need to look at how your bike's performing under braking. Okay. And something most people don't consider when they're comparing anti-rise is what the fork's doing. Like no matter what your anti-rise is, you're braking on your bike, and you're almost always braking with your front brake whenever you're braking with your rear brake. I can't think of many instances where you're braking with your rear brake only on a mountain bike. And no matter what anti-rise you have, when you're hitting your front brake, your fork's going to dive. So if we consider that as a constant, that the fork, will experience dive, then the rear end sitting higher and in a more supple part of the travel to where the rear suspension can work more freely is something that I find gives the rider more control. So I really like the way the previous gen from the high pivot treks have worked under braking, and that was a feeling that I wanted to capture in my bike.
That's pretty much it. The only other question is, do you have any insight as to what World Cup's going to look like? Will junior racing still be free and live on YouTube? Are they cutting down to 30? Like, do you have any of that insight yet?
No, I would say that I don't expect a lot of big changes for 2024. I think they normally need to propose these changes pretty early, and we would know about them if there were. So I would expect 24 to be very similar to 23. I do believe junior is still going to be televised, and hopefully still posted on YouTube. I think that having Asa, that's going to be a huge thing for us to have those junior races televised. So yeah, I expect similar things in 24 and maybe some big changes in 25.
Semifinals still, you think?
I think this year it's too late to take them away, but I haven't talked to one person who likes them.
I think we all think it's just not going to be there because no one likes it. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, as a fan watching, it's too long of a day, and it's confusing to watch. And as a rider, it's the same. Like, man, it's 2 races. It's like, it's not what downhill is.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, thanks so much. Stoked to hear about Angel getting on the squad and that you guys are charging forward. And yeah, appreciate your time. And like I said earlier, the transparency that you bring with what you do, and really looking forward to what the year brings, and stoked for you.
Yeah, man. Vital has been a huge supporter of everything I do. You guys share pretty much every video I have and everything that I'm doing, and that means so much. So thank you so much, and for everything you do to support racing, and especially U.S. racing. Definitely owe it all to you. So thank you, guys.
Anytime, all the time. So sick. A big shout out goes to Maxxis Tires, Jensen USA, and Fox Shocks for supporting the Inside Line. Welcome, mountain bikers.